our distinguished guests, Secretary Ramon Lopez, Secretary Mark Villar, MMDA Chair Danilo Lim, PNP Chief General Archie Francisco Gamboa, all our other guests from the Presidential Management Staff, Undersecretary Ferdinand Guy, Director Sheila Ritz Gatsalian, Ana Belinda Dasio, Diona Aquino Habate, Nicole Refuerzo, Ras Ivan Rafael Damian, from DPWH Director Ernesto Gregorio, from DTI Undersecretary Ruth Castelo, and Ms. Andrea Uy, Ms. Camille Joven, Ms. Elaine Cotoner, Mr. Francisco Empalmado, from Peoples, Ms. Mariton Bornas, Mr. Ishmael Nara, Mr. Mel Pagtalunan, Fatima Moncada, Mishi Tamayo, Hannah Lucero, from MMDA, Mr. Mike Salalima, from DILG, Undersecretary Nestor Kensay Jr., Fire Director Jose Mbang Jr. To all our other guests, all our friends from the media, different media organizations, magandang hapon po and welcome to our press conference. As we all know, the Philippines has DTI to ensure the structural integrity of all our infrastructures to be able to guarantee the safety of our people. So on October 21, 2019, DILG Secretary Eduardo Año, DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez, and DPWH Secretary Mark Villar signed the Joint Memorandum Circular 2019-01, and the subject of which is towards ensuring safe, adaptive, and disaster-resilient communities. So to explain better the role of each agency, we will hear the statements of our secretaries. But prior to that, may I direct your attention first to the presentations of PBOGs. So may I call on Mr. Ishmael Nara, the Officer in charge of Seismological Observational Earthquake Prediction Division, to brief us on the big one.
So, good afternoon everyone and distinguished guests. Today, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology will provide you a summary of what we call an earthquake scenario for Metro Manila, which is dubbed by the media as the big one. It is referred to as the big one because it has the largest earthquake risk impact for the whole Philippines, considering that it will impact Metro Manila and its surrounding provinces. And we do know that Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces has the densest population all over the Philippines, and it is the seat of government, and we oversee that for the next 10 to 20 years it will continue to be the seat of development for the Philippines. Next slide, please. So we do understand that the earthquake activity in the Philippines is due to its geotectonic setting. It is understood that the Philippines is situated along the Pacific Ring of Fire, where earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur. As you can see from the different dots in the middle of the image, which represents earthquake epicenters, it represents that the Philippines is a very mobile environment, meaning there are cases of faulting, mountain building, volcanic eruptions, etc. And from the rightmost side, it will show you most of the earthquake generators identified by PHIVOLCS that may generate large and strong earthquakes that may devastate the surrounding areas where the epicenter is located. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary or a zoom in of all of the earthquake generators that have impacted Metro Manila. Most of them are considered to be around 200 kilometers away from Metro Manila, and based on our studies of the historical and instrumental instruments, please click the slide. The earthquakes occurring along the Valley Fault System and the Manila Trench will provide the largest effect for Metro Manila and the surrounding vicinities. Okay, so next slide, please. Next, please. Next, please. Next slide, please. So the West Valley Fault which is part of the Valley Fault system, is considered, the West Valley Fault is considered the zone where a magnitude 7.2 earthquake will occur, considering it has a total length of 100 kilometers compared to the East Valley Fault, which is only about 10 kilometers in total length. Based on historical documents, we've seen and studies that were done along the trenchings along the Valley Fault. 4 major surface rupturing events in the past 1,400 years have occurred, and the spacing would occur around 400 to 600 years. So, next slide, please. Could you go back? Go back to the casualty estimates. So, in terms of casualty estimates, a magnitude 7.2 earthquake will impact several areas in Metro Manila and also with the surrounding provinces. Metro Manila alone has more than a little over 34,000 casualties, fatalities rather, and then about more than 17,000 very seriously injured after the big event. This is due to damages of structures ranging from severe damage to total collapse. If we add in the fatalities and very seriously injured estimates for Bulacan, Rizal, Cavite, Laguna, and Pampanga, this would cover more than 48,000 fatalities and more than 24,000 very seriously injured persons. So if those who are considered very seriously injured will not be able to reach hospitals immediately, they would add on to the fatalities. Next slide, please. So I mentioned before that the casualties are due to the collapse and damages of structures, but there are also cases wherein fire and also damage of bridges may occur. And that would also add to the total number of damages and also add into the casualties for Metro Manila alone. So if we look at Metro Manila alone, considering all of the building damages, the fire, the damages to infrastructure, based on the Metro Manila Earthquake Impact Reduction Study in 2004, it would definitely divide the whole Metro Manila into 4 quadrants. And those 4 quadrants have been the issue of many plans for preparedness, rehabilitation, recovery, and response. And the only way to reduce the impact is to partner with the different agencies and non-government institutions to help out in the recovery and preparedness and mitigation planning for this magnitude 7.2 earthquake. Next slide, please. So, under the Metro Manila Earthquake Impact Reduction Study, there are 6 goals that were identified in order to reduce the impact of the big earthquake for Metro Manila. And this has became the template for most of the recovery and preparedness and mitigation plans being done in different parts of the country. So if we look at goal 2, it says here that we need to improve the resilience of urban structures and settlements, which is the basis of most of our of this press conference, in order to avoid the projected damages that may occur after a big earthquake. So on our part, FIVOS will continue to promote research and technology development in terms of identifying the hazard and also estimating the risk in the event of very large earthquake in different parts of the country. Next slide, please. So in terms of earthquake-resilient national systems, we do plan to assess and improve the integrity of buildings against earthquake and fire hazards. For DOST, our role here is to provide you with input information of the different hazards, and DPWH, partnering with the different agencies like DTI and the Office of Civil Defense and also with DILG, will further improve the construction and implementation of the design of buildings, earthquake-resistant buildings in the different parts of the country. We also plan to deconstruct the operations of strategically located sub-offices, considering national governments and businesses away from Metro Manila, in order to reduce the population concentrated in this zone. Next slide, please. So part of our work is also to strengthen houses and buildings against earthquakes and tsunami and fire hazards. And with this, next slide please, we've developed a tool which we call FIVOL's Fault Finder. This was the initial tool that was provided to the public where they can identify their location away from an active fault. Because we do know that if a house is built on an active fault and if an earthquake will occur along this fault, it will definitely be damaged. But it is important to note that the closer you are to an active fault, the higher the level of earthquake hazards and the likelihood of damage that may happen to the structure that you belong to. Next slide, please. Furthermore, we've already improved this software. We have a web tool and a mobile tool which we call Hazard Hunter PH. Here we've incorporated many of the assessment tools and assessment procedures done by the different hazard mapping agencies, Mines Geosciences Bureau, PAG-ASA, and FIVOLS. And by a click of a button, it will give you an assessment of what are the potential hazards located at your sites, and it will give you an explanation of the hazard, and it will also give you a general recommendation on what to do. Next slide, please. So we've also developed a 12-point questionnaire, and this will be used by the different homeowners in order to identify how prone their house is for severe ground shaking and what would be the recommendation. Basically, it recommends that most of the houses in Metro Manila should be regularly checked by structural engineers in order to check their integrity and their structural ability to resist the level of ground shaking that may be experienced during a large earthquake. Next slide, please. Part of our work is also to develop the Philippine earthquake model. This earthquake model will give us probabilistic seismic hazard maps based on extreme ground shaking due to large earthquakes and their likelihood to occur in different exposure times, 50, 150, and 250 years, 500, and 1,000 years. Next slide, please. Those maps can be, next slide, please. Those maps can be shown here in terms of G values, which is the acceleration of gravity that may be experienced by a structure, and it also shows different exposure times and different site conditions for the Philippines. Next slide, please. We also zoomed into the different major metropolises in the Philippines, including Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, and Metro Davao, and came up with their own earthquake model that is adapted to their region using the site response and site-specific studies that we've done for the different metropolitan areas. Next slide, please. We've also developed a software which we call the Rapid Earthquake Damage Assessment System that would provide you with an impact scenario for the different areas in the Philippines, not only in Metro Manila. And this incorporated all of the studies that we've done in Metro Manila, and this is used to springboard most of the research in terms of impact assessment in the different areas in the Philippines. Aside from that, we've partnered with PAG-ASA in developing the severe wind impact forecasting tool, and also with the Mines Geosciences Bureau in coming up with the flood loss assessment for areas that are flood prone. Next slide, please. So I will now give the mic to the division head of our volcano monitoring and eruption prediction division, FIVOLS, that will give you a scenario for the eruption of Taal volcano.
Hello, good afternoon, distinguished guests. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariton, and I'm here to present just a brief recap of the activity of Taal volcano and the scenarios that we might be facing for the next few years. So, just a recap. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you remember, we haven't just brought down the alert level to 2 last February 14, wherein we had experienced decreased unrest for the volcano. Last year, we raised the alert level to 1 in March 2019 because of elevated seismicity and ground deformation of the volcano island, which we reiterated in December 1 of 2019, and we had an eruption that began on January 12, which is the onset of the phreatic eruption. And then at 4 o'clock the same day, we had the onset of the phreatomagmatic eruption, and we raised the alert level to 3. And the alert level was raised to 4 at 7:30 in the evening due to tendency for a hazardous eruption to occur. And this was a period of the peak eruption. We lowered the alert level to 3 on January 26. So currently, alert level 2 is prevailing over Taal volcano. We are currently experiencing 46 earthquakes per day. This is starkly lower than the hundreds to even 1,000 earthquakes per day that we experienced during the eruption. Most of the earthquakes are due to the rock fracturing processes beneath the caldera rather than magma movement. SO2, or sulfur dioxide emission, which is a proxy of magmatic gas, has a decrease of 42 tons per day. And the ground deformation of Taal is slowly subsiding, which is also different from the sudden uplift that was experienced on the northern part of the caldera during the eruption period. So there are no indications of magma intrusion, and currently, activity at the main crater is isolated to the gassing events, and thermal anomalies that are detected by satellite sensors have already ceased to exist. Next slide, please. So, what are we expecting for Taal? Based on the historical record of its activity and its eruptive behavior, we may be seeing a repose period that can span anywhere from 1 to 54 years. And in this period, we can have any of the following eruptions, which are classified or described by its power or magnitude, called scaled in terms of the volcano explosivity index, or the VEI. VEI 5 being the largest volcanic eruption that Taal has exhibited historically. VEI 5 to VEI 3 eruptions are very dangerous eruptions because these eruptions produce volcanic hazards of base surges, or what are called pyroclastic density currents, volcanic tsunami, fissuring that we have experienced recently in the town southwest of Taal Volcano Island, widespread and significant ashfall that can affect areas all the way to the far away from the volcano, landslides and lahars. So for VEI 5, we can scale the probabilities of these eruptions occurring based on the historical record of Taal eruptions. So for VEI 5, these are eruptions that may produce up to cubic kilometer volume of magma and can produce eruption columns that can reach up to 30 or exceed 30 kilometers in elevation. So if you remember the past eruption, that was around 15 to 16 kilometers. No? So it's not really as large as the largest eruption, worst case scenario eruption that can happen for Taal. So a VEI 5 eruption, like the 1754 eruption, which is a prolonged highly explosive eruption, the probabilities of this erupting, based on the historical record, is about 4%. VEI 4, these are highly explosive eruptions but are more shorter lived than the VEI 5 eruptions and can produce eruption columns exceeding 20 kilometers in elevation, and the volume of the ejecta are somewhere in the 100 million cubic meters. So there's a 17% chance of this occurring based on the historical record. A VEI 3, these are explosive eruptions which may be short-lived as well, and the eruption column can exceed 10 kilometers in height, and magma volume that can be erupted is somewhere in the tens of millions of cubic meters. and there's a 17% chance of this erupting. But the highest probability of an eruption, the highest probability, the eruption type with the highest probability of eruption are the VEI2 eruptions, and these are mainly the lava fountaining or the weak phreatomagmatic events, similar to the 1968 and 69 eruptions. And there is a very small chance that we might have a VEI1 eruption or the phreatics or stream-driven eruption, similar to the 1977 eruption. So this is just a picture of the base surges, which are the primary hazards of Taal. These are pyroclastic density currents that are actually produced at the base of the eruption column and can cross or transport across Taal Lake and hit the lakeshore areas. So that is why when we are at alert level 3 and 4, we are evacuating people from the lakeshore towns because of this phenomena. So areas that can be impacted by the worst case scenario eruptions, the VEI5 and VEI4 eruptions, can be distinguished based on the hazards that these areas are exposed. For ashfall and tephra as we have seen, very wide and extensive areas outside of the Batangas province, which is the principal area of impact or the ground zero of the eruption, can be affected. We have ashfall. We can expect heavy ashfall as far as Bulacan provinces to the north, maybe even in Pampanga, the entirety of Metro Manila, and all the way to Quezon province. So in the 1911 eruption, there was ash that reached the provinces of Quezon. For the primary hazards of base surges, pyroclastic density currents, volcanic tsunami, and even landslide, the most susceptible or the most prone areas are the towns and cities of Batangas province beside Taal Lake. These include Agoncillo and Laurel, which are the municipalities at highest risk. San Nicolas, Taal, Talisay, Tanawan, Lemery, Lipa, Mataas na Kahoy, Malvar, Cuenca, Alitagtag, and Santa Teresita. Now, for ground deformation or fissuring, similar to what has happened in the southwestern portion of Taal Caldera, this phenomena can be experienced by, again, this similar Batangas towns and cities, Lemery, Taal, Agoncillo, San Nicolas, Talisay, and Tanawan. But also, historically, there was also a case of extreme fissuring during the 1749 eruption, which impacted the towns of Tanawan and Calamba, Laguna. So these areas are currently covered. For example, for the areas of high hazard from a Taal volcanic eruption, based on the worst case scenario, the 1754 eruption, are depicted in our current hazard maps, which you can also see in the hazard hunter. For example, these are the areas that are very prone to base surges, and this map was used to identify the areas that have to be evacuated during the unrest. And these are the areas that are prone to tsunami. Now, just because of the we have current research. We have current research on the base surge phenomena in Taal, and as well as we have a lot of changes in the landscape of Taal. We need to revise these hazard maps as well. And we also need to conduct probabilistic ashfall hazard modeling for Taal, so that we may be able to illustrate the impact or the extent of the worst case scenario eruption. Because right now, these hazard maps are still in the research stage. So before we can produce these maps, there has to be, we have to finish all of the extensive research that are needed for the ashfall hazard or the tephra hazard probabilistic modeling. So I think this is the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Mariton Bornas. So, Taal pa lang po yung nakita natin, but there are still other active volcanoes in the entire country. So we will now hear the statements of our honorable secretaries, and we will start with the statement of Secretary Eduardo M. Anyo of the Department of the Interior and Local Government.
Hello. Good afternoon, my fellow public servants, our friends in the media, and our fellow public servants from DTI, DPWH, PBOX, PNP, MMDA, and other agencies. Thank you for joining our press conference this afternoon on disaster resiliency. Resilience, it is the new norm. Before, the creed was peace and development. Now, our mission is to have peaceful, progressive, and resilient communities. The DILG has been relentless in mainstreaming disaster preparedness among LGUs through planning and training programs. Ngayon ay level up po tayo from planning and training programs. We move to another level of preparedness that lies in investing in better, stronger infrastructure. Concretizing the policy for this goal is the issuance of the DTI, DILG, DPWH Joint Memorandum Circular or JMC number 2019-01 dated October 22, 2019 to ensure safe, adaptive, and disaster-resilient communities. Ano ba ang mga responsibilidad ng LGUs ayon sa polisiyang ito? Provincial, city, and municipal LGUs are directed to assess the structural integrity of all public and private buildings, facilities, and infrastructure as to their conformance with the standards of the National Building Code of the Philippines and requirements of disaster resilience founded on a science-based approach to hazard and risk assessment. LGUs must not only develop but also implement action plans with specific timelines to address infrastructure assessment findings and ensure the structural integrity of critical infrastructures. LGUs are urged to collaborate with business and civil society sectors and the communities for all necessary disaster resilience measures. LGUs should also enforce resilient building standards through streamlined and strengthened building permit procedures and enhanced standards of construction materials. Moreover, the JMC emphasizes the Greater Metro Manila Area or GMMA comprised of Metro Manila, Pampanga, Bataan, Zambales, Nueva Ecija, Tarlac, Bulacan, Laguna, Cavite, Rizal, Batangas, and Quezon to undertake all DRR measures for earthquake resiliency. In line with this, all LGUs are expected to submit to the DILG and DPWH the rapid structural assessment of all buildings and infrastructures in their jurisdiction, as well as their action plans to respond to the assessment findings 90 days from today. We emphasize that failure to comply with the JMC and its accompanying timelines will be dealt with accordingly. I assure that the DILG is ever ready to do its supervisory role in enforcing accountability of local chief executives, in implementing laws and public policies on DRR, such as this Joint Memo Circular number 2019-01. Indeed, being a leader calls for adept foresight, prudence, and precaution. Preparedness mitigates economic losses and damages to infrastructure. Let's be preventive, then be reactive. Hindi mamaya na, hindi bahala na. Mas maraming pong buhay at ari-ari ang maliligtas mula sa sakuna kung maigi ang ating paghahanda. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Secretary. For our next statement, we
Hello. Fellow workers in government, mga kasama sa media, magandang hapon ho. So, the Department of Trade and Industry is committed to safe and disaster-resilient communities while enhancing the country's readiness against earthquakes. In fulfillment of the Joint Memorandum Circular number 2019-01 DTI is working with the DILG and DPWH in a whole-of-government approach to achieve this goal. Under DTI, the Bureau of Philippine Standards, or BPS, ensures the Philippine national standards for the assessment of the structural integrity of buildings and infrastructure are available and aligned with international standards. The standards for critical construction materials such as steel, cement, and concrete have been developed and reviewed periodically. We even made stricter the procedure in testing standard compliance. For example, we have adjusted the sampling before when an importer would import steel products, whether that's 5,000 metric tons or 10,000 metric tons, only 3 pieces ang kinukuha. So we've done research on areas of what would be an ideal sampling size per amount of importation. So we came up with a matrix that basically increased the number of sampling size. For example, in that 20,000 metric tons, they only expect 3 pieces. Based on ISO formula, we have to do 50 pieces. So mas marami tayong tinetest, basically to increase the probability and accuracy of our test. We have also done several testing, both at the factory site, the pre-shipment area, and the post-shipment if the product is being imported. So in other words, halos 3 testing points ang ginagawa. Dati yun, isa lang. No? Okay, and so compliance of these materials to product standards plays a great role in the integrity of the structures and other works. As such, DTI, with the help of DILG and the PNP, will be working with local offices to conduct surprise inspection on suppliers, wholesalers, and retailers of construction materials. This is where we also would like to strengthen the partnership with the PNP, especially the CIDG, when it comes to the requirements for greater intelligence work, so that we will be able to trace the sources of substandard materials that are sold at the hardware or the retailer points. We will have to trace back the sources, the distributors, the location of their warehouses, as well as the source of the manufacturer, to certify that substandard materials are kept out of the market. Those who fail to comply with requirements can face payment of penalties, revocation of permits, and possible imprisonment. On DTI's part, our Consumer Protection and Advocacy Bureau has been working on heightening consumer awareness on purchasing construction material that comply with product standards. Likewise, our Fair Trade Enforcement Bureau, or FTEB, has been conducting intensified monitoring of construction materials at the retail market or doon mismo sa mga hardwares. Through our whole-of-government approach, we are working on safeguarding our communities against earthquakes. However, we need the support of suppliers and manufacturers of these construction materials to comply with product standards. Further, we call on the public and local governments to help us in our monitoring effort. Remember, selling substandard materials is like selling illegal drugs. You endanger the lives of the Filipinos. To cultivate a culture of resilience with the goal of ensuring safe, adaptive, and disaster-resilient communities in the country, all of us need to work together in a whole-of-nation approach. By doing so, our people can be secure on creating a better future for themselves and their children. This is the realization of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte's vision of Tapang at Malasakit. With a government that has the political will to do the difficult reforms at magkaroon ng tunay na pagbabago para sa kapakanan ng ating mga mahal na kababayan. Maraming salamat po. Good afternoon.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Ramon Lopez of the Department of Trade Highways.
Salamat po. Good afternoon. The DPWH administers and enforces the provisions of the National Building Code of the Philippines and its revised implementing rules and regulations. Assisting the Secretary in the enforcement is the National Building Code Development Office, created through a DPWH department order. Under the National Building Code, the building officials shall undertake annual inspections of all buildings and structures in the respective jurisdictions. While the regional offices and district engineering offices are not tasked with the direct enforcement of NBCP, the same being the function of the building officials, the said offices play a role in ensuring compliance with the requirements that are necessary for permits being issued under the National Building Code. Likewise, all district engineers and DP regional directors shall provide technical assistance to LGUs in their conduct of structural assessments, including the conduct of structural audit activities to ensure that they are in compliance with the standards being enforced under the National Building Code and the National Structural Code as mandated by the JMC. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po. Procedure, may I request those who will ask questions to please state your name and the media organization that you represent. So, sino po ang magbibigay ng unang katanungan? Aaron.
Hello, sir. Hi, sir. Good afternoon. Sir, just to cite three observations first before I go to the question. Kasi, number one, despite nung mga earthquake drills, tapos despite yung campaign ng government to inform people about the disasters, yearly, kami sa media, we still report deaths, tapos mga injuries sa typhoons, earthquakes. Number two observation, sir, is during the Taal volcano eruption, we observed that some of the decisions, like yung forced evacuation within the 40-kilometer danger zone, actually came from you, sir, if I'm not mistaken. So, on the point of view of some people, sir, like us, is that should not be the case kasi in those situations, dapat local chief executives, alam na nila ang gagawin nila in those situations. And number three, if you have a vice mayor of Batangas questioning FIVOX regarding yung Taal volcano eruption, that could be a manifestation or could be presumed as parang there's something wrong when it comes to cascading yung disaster response, disaster preparedness down to the local level, which is nandun talaga yung mga important decision making and policy making. So now comes with the question, so nasaan na po ba tayo when it comes do sa level of awareness, preparedness, and cascading of information when it comes to fully prepare yung Philippines sa mga disaster na ganito?
When it comes to disaster, meron tayong NDRRMC. This is the council na lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno ay nandito, pati yung ating mga representation from League of Provincial Governors, League of Cities, and League of Municipalities. So may protocol na dito. I agree with you na nilolocalize muna natin yung anumang disaster kapag kaya within the local DRRMC. Now, there are cases na hindi kaya ng capacity ng local DRRMC, kaya kailangan mag-step in ang NDRRMC, at particularly kung kaninong departamento ang mayroong pinaka-responsibility dito. Like for example, what happened in Taal, despite that the provincial government has already implemented the evacuation. January 12 pa lang, nag-start na sila ng evacuation. Kasi kung hindi nangyari yun, marami pa talagang naging casualty tayo doon. But because of deteriorating condition, we have to really support the provincial government from the national government. That's why I directed the Philippine National Police, and we call on the armed forces to help in the forced evacuation and implementation of the lockdown. Kapag ka naman kaya ng lokal yan, pinapabayan natin yan. Marami naman pagkakataon na ang local lang ay kaya na. But we have to give credits and credits to the provincial government of Batangas because at the initial stage of this disaster, sila talaga ang kumilos dyan. Ang national government sumunod na lang dyan the day after and succeeding days. So, ganun pa rin. We have, meron tayong tinatawag na open listo. Ito ay pinaka-checklist kung ano ang gagawin ng lahat ng local government units kapag may disaster, particularly preparedness. Pero may mga exigencies na hindi nandun sa listahan, papasok yung national. And this is a continuing effort.
Sir, so at this point, sir, yung sa Batangas, yung ibang assessment talaga, talagang maganda yung response. Pero at this point, sir, can we say na yung all local government units in the Philippines, are they fully prepared to handle situations, disaster situations?
Yes, I believe that they are prepared. But sabi ko nga, may hierarchy. May hierarchy. If it is involving already more than 2 municipalities, the provincial DRMC shall take over. If there are 2 provinces involved, then the national will go in. Ang isang lapse na nakita namin dito sa ating protocol ay yung sa regional level. Kasi there are 2 provinces involved, yung affected, Cavite and Batangas. And there were 2 municipalities na talagang na-wipe out sila at ang evacuation center nila ay Cavite. Yun yung hindi namin napagandahan sapagkat all along, ang preparation natin, the province will take care of its own province, pero kailangan natin ng another what we call coordination mechanism among or between 2 provinces.
Last, sir, on my part, kanina sabi ng FIBOC, sir, is yung almost all of the casualties in case of the big one would come from collapsed structures. So, may we be updated, sir, on the national level, nasaan na tayo in terms of percentage, yung compliance nung regular assessment and inspection of structures, buildings, bridges? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. At this point, may orders na, i-evaluate na lahat ng public buildings para malaman din natin kung ano yung resiliency ng building. At this point, there are 5,980 buildings that are public buildings that are undergoing risk assessment in the Greater Metro Manila area. That's including 4A and 3. And meron din kaming budget para sa retrofitting. Actually, meron kaming budget para sa preparation sa big one. So, pagkatapos na-assess na po yung structure, pupundohan po namin yung detailed engineering plans for the retrofitting. And of course, this year, pati yung mga kasama po yung mga bridges, ang dalawa sa pinakamalaking retrofitting projects ay yung retrofitting ng Guadalupe at ng Bingan Bridge. So those are slated to start this year. Gumagawa lang kami ng mga structures para ma-minimize po yung traffic, yung possibility of traffic habang kino-construct habang ginagawa yung retrofitting ng tulay.
Just a quick one. Sir, yung 5,000 plus this year lang or the past 3 years?
No, these are currently being assessed in preparation for the big one. So ongoing po, dinirect po na po ang ating mga building officials at syempre po kasama po ang ating DPWH and also private sector natin. Sa dami rin po ng mga buildings, kailangan ng unified effort para ma-assess po kaagad ang ating mga public buildings. So as of 2019, there are 23 identified retrofitting projects, 11 hospitals, 12 school buildings funded, and currently there are more that will be implemented this year. So tuloy-tuloy naman po ang assessment at tuloy-tuloy din po ang retrofitting sa lahat po ng public buildings sa Greater Metro Manila area.
Okay, some more questions?
For LGUs to submit their assessment on the ground. Sir, kasi sir, coming from the memorandum ng DILG dun sa road clearing, sabi niyo sir, nag-i-issue ng show cause orders dun sa LGUs na hindi nakaka-meet ng requirements. Will the same apply, sir, dun sa LGUs na not imposing measures on disaster resiliency dun sa areas po nila?
For this particular requirement, hindi naman natin kailangan magkaroon ng penalty, punishment, or sanction. Kasi this is more of requiring the LGUs to fast-track the structural assessment because we don't know when the big one will come. Matagal na itong ating JFC, October pa ito na issue, and we presume dapat nagkakandak na sila ng structural assessment. So, binigyan natin ang timeline nito para mag-comply sila. Ayaw naman natin sabihin na palaging, sige, parusahan namin kayo. Dapat gagawin nila ito because this is their job, being LG. This is part of the responsibilities.
If that kind of sanction will not apply, sir, what will the DILG do to the LGUs found negligent dun sa matter?
Well, dyan na papasok yung admin and criminal liability. Like for example, yung sa Chuson Supermarket, nagkandak tayo ng investigation dito. The DPWH conducted the investigation, pati yung ating CIDG. So doon papasok kapag merong damage at saka loss of lives, papasok dyan yung administrative and criminal liability. So alam nila yan, kaya they have to do their job.
Sir, which specific admin case po?
Well, marami yan. Like for example, kunyari negligence, actions inimical to public interest. So, kahit na sabi natin na grave misconduct. So, titingnan natin kung saan, depende sa sitwasyon, kung saan natin mapapatangan siya ng admin case. Pero kapag may mga loss of lives na yan, papasok yung criminal liability.
Pero sir, di ba po grave misconduct and yung ibang admin case, pwede itong tantamount for dismissal from office?
Yes, dismissal or suspension or permanent banning from assuming government office, elective or appointed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next question.
Sabi niyo na target po ng DPWH na makapagpatayo ng more than 200 evacuation areas. Tigda-dalawa po each lalawigan. Update po kung ano pong status. May mga nasimula na po ba? At saka po yung kabuoang budget po para sa pagtatayo ng lahat ng evacuation areas.
Since for the past few years, every year, meron talagang budget para sa evacuation centers. In fact, more than 100 have already been constructed. At meron pa kaming more than 100 that are currently under construction. So every year, that's 2 per region for the past several years. At this point, marami ng, like I said earlier, marami na pong nata. In fact, 3 of those were used during the Taal. Yung sa Tanawan, sa Santa Rosa, and San Pascual. Yun, nagamit po sa nung pumutok po yung Taal volcano. So, as per the instructions of the President, continuous naman po pag-construct ng evacuation centers. There are currently evacuation centers in all regions. In fact, recently, we opened evacuation, the first one in NCR that was constructed by the national government. So, this is eventually para hindi nang gamitin yung mga eskwelahan as an evacuation center. So, okay, tuloy-tuloy naman po pag-construct.
Okay, next question. From UNTV.
Good afternoon, sirs, from UNTV. Sa DPWH po, sir, pag dumating yung the big one, ilan yung possible na mga bridges and buildings na magkukollapse dito sa Metro Manila, sir?
We don't have an exact number kung ilan. It's very depende rin sa strength ng lakas ng earthquake. Sa amin lang naman, lahat po ng new structures are seismic rated. So nakikita po natin lahat ng ginagawang mga bagong viaducts. Those are designed to withstand up to 8 na earthquake. Yung mga bagong meaning lahat po sila ay seismic rated. Now, yung mga luma pong bridges, yun ang kasama po sa retrofitting plan ng DPWH. Binanggit ko po kanina yung Guadalupe Bridge kasama po. These are the older bridges that will need to be retrofitted. Tinatimingan lang namin dahil syempre may effect din ito sa traffic sa Metro Manila. So gumagawa muna kami ng mga alternative routes para at least pag nagsimula na yung implementation, hindi na masyado mabigat yung epekto sa ating traffic.
At sa DILG, sir, nabanggit na ba o nasabihan ng mga LG na possible na may mga mag-collapse na building and bridges po, sir?
Tuloy-tuloy pa din yan yung pagkuha natin ng ating mga list na yan. Kung ano yung mga vulnerable areas and facilities na po pwedeng bumagsak in times of or pagdating ng big one. So ito rin kasama nga ito sa aming require sa kanila. And once dumating yan, we will make also this available to the media for public information.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Third and pa from. Sa observe lang ako kasi before, dyan sa QC, lagi ako nadadaan. Yung going to Katipunan, before may mga banner na nakalagay na this is part of the fault line, particularly sa may likod ng Blue Ridge. And then ngayon napansin ko na parang may kondo na nakatayo. So ano, sir, yung effort ng government for that? To ensure yung safety ng mga tao na possibly bibili doon, na hindi naman nako-compromise na yung safety nila for the sake of business, sir?
Alam ko, even before, meron tayong pinalabas dyan na no construction over the fault line. If I remember, 3 meters both sides. No? So, minarkahan yan. And it is the job of the LGU to implement that yung nadaanan ng West Valley Fault. So we will revisit that kung ano yung action na ginawa ng LGU. At dapat nagko-conform sila sa National Building Code para yung kanilang infrastructure buildings ay mag-withstand sa earthquake.
George Kailas po, CNN Philippines. Secretary, yung mechanism, sir, to monitor yung assessment na ginagawa ng LGU? Because sa mga clearing nyo, meron kayong board na ginawa. How about this one, sir? Para makita po natin kung nagpo-progress yung LGU.
Well, kasama din natin dito yung DTI at saka DPWH, kaya na ito ay joint memo. And based on the submission provided by the LGUs, we will conduct our evaluation. Titingnan natin din dito kung ano yung level of compliance ng mga LGU. Remember, these LGUs have the primary responsibility. Kami national agency, our job is to make sure that they comply, we supervise, we monitor, and if there are sanctions to be applied, then we will do so. And also, if there are some capacitance or capacity building na kailangan, that's our job. So, rest assured, no, yung that mechanism is being followed, and we'll make sure also that the LGUs will abide.
Sir, clarification, submission after 90 days.
Yes, 90 days yung sinabi natin timeline, but they can do it even before the 90 days.
Alright.
I'm sure meron na sila dyan, hindi lang nila na isasubmit. With this, our renewed effort for them to comply, may mga magsasabit na dyan for sure.
And sir, when we talk about private buildings, we talk about, we include houses and siguro residential buildings. Kasama po yan sa ipinapa-assess po natin.
Oh, yes. Kasi by order of priority naman yan, yung unahin muna natin yung mga facilities na ginagamit for service to the people. And then kasama yung mga private facilities. In fact, kasama yan kapag nagpaparenewal sila at saka nag-a-apply ng occupancy and building permit. Then natin po pwedeng ipasok yung sanction na kailangan mag-comply sila.
Some more questions. I will...
The coronavirus pa rin, sir. No? Because in other countries like South Korea and Italy, some of their local governments implement lockdown dahil nga to prevent the spread of the virus. I know we have already a memorandum, sir, sa LGUs to take care of that. Pero in the incident, sir, kung lumala, kung halimbawa lang, sa worst case scenario, for instance, Metro Manila, mag-declare ng lockdown yung isang city, papaano po yung, halimbawa, if I have work in Mandaluyong and I reside in Quezon City, kasama po ba yung movement ng mga tao from house to work na maapektuhan in case that it happens?
Well, of course, your premise is kung halimbawa ay lumala yung
Yes, sir.
situation.
Correct, sir.
We have a lot of experiences, hindi naman related sa coronavirus. For example, Marawi crisis. Nag-impose tayo ng lockdown dyan.
Yes, sir.
Sulu, after the suicide bombing, nag-impose tayo ng lockdown dyan. Walang lalabas, walang papasok, vehicle, people. Kaya natin yan. Ang pagkakaiba sa coronavirus, kailangan mayroon tayong protective gear para sa ating mga law enforcers. And secondly, of course, we have the facilities where to bring casualties, victims. So, ang ating government, we have the capability to do that. We have the experiences. We have also from the PNP and the Bureau of Fire, yung CBER natin, yung tinatawag na CBER, yung chemical, biological, nuclear, radioactive materials for decontamination. Kompleto yung ating equipment dyan and they are fully trained. So we can use this expert to impose if there is really a need for a lockdown if the coronavirus will aggravate.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, last question. Yes, sir.
Magandang hapon po, Secretary. Carlo Bateo po sa DCWB. Kung ngayong hapon po magaganap yung tinatawag nating the big one, ngayong hapong ito, gaano kahanda ang gobyerno? Gaano po kahanda ang gobyerno?
Siguro po lahat ng secretaries ang sasagot. Ano po? Okay.
Well, una-una, this is the essence why we are doing the quarterly earthquake drill. Hindi lang in Metro Manila, but nationwide to develop the instinct for people what to do in case the big one arrives. Immediately, of course, our local DRMC, especially here in Metro Manila, Region 4A and Region 3, will immediately convene the local NDRMC, designate the Incident Monitoring Center, and form and dispatch emergency response team. The member of the NDRMC Council will immediately consolidate in the NDRMC Center. May drill din kami ginagawa dyan. The assembly area, and to immediately bring the officials there, and the President will preside the NDRMC Operation Center. And then immediately the LGUs, as if what they're doing the drill, tuloy-tuloy na siya, parang sinasabi na nag-sandwich mo, then tuloy-tuloy na yan. But of course, this is continuing. Every quarter meron tayo, and gusto sana natin mas lumawak yung participation ng lahat. Noong una, ay biro-biro lang, pero nakita natin, unti-unti na, nagiging aware na. Importante kasi yung public awareness. And hopefully, everyone will be serious to follow this drill because this will save your own life.
Tuloy-tuloy yung drill na ginagawa, as mentioned, almost every quarter. Pati kami na wala dun sa initial, yung agency na hindi for initial reaction. Subalit, ang role naman ng DTI dyan, as part of the emergency situation na ganun, like the big one, I remember that, syempre yung continuous supply ng food and beverage for replenishment, assuming dito na nangyari sa the whole of Metro Manila, sarado lahat, bumagsak mga building, maraming namatay. Doon sa mga drill na ginagawa, may mga response system na ma-activate in effect. At ang tulong hindi magagaling sa Metro Manila. Talagang may naka-assign na mga regions sa ang Metro Manila, merong tinatawag na nakahati sa siyempre quadrant, apat na lugar. At may magsa-service na LGU sa bawat quadrant. Ganun yung preparation. May first level, may region muna na a-attend sa sabihin na natin north, south, east, west ng Manila, 4 na lugar, bawat region. Pag kinulang pa yun, may next set of regions na papasok din. So ito yung mga example ng preparedness. On the food and beverage, part of the preparation, paditalye yung preparation. Sinabi namin na kung wala ng food and beverage supply dito sa Metro Manila, kailangan sa labas manggagaling. Anong region? So binita namin ng mga manufacturers, food manufacturers, pati yung mga retailers, yung mga malls, may-ari ng supermarkets, hypermarkets. Hinihingan na namin sila ng TOCA. In other words, ano yung mga isusupply nila, gaano karami, at sa anong area. Nandun na yung level of preparation. At kumbaga, i-trigger na lang yung pag talagang nangyari na. At pag-uusapan na rin sinong kumpanya, sinong retailer, at ano yung mga quantity ng beverage and food. Pinag-uusapan na rin, kasama dyan, hindi lahat yan i-donate. Remember, siyempre, ano pa rin yan, meron na lang portion, i-identify nila ano yung donation, at ano yung mula after that volume, ano na yung babayaran at commit bayaran na din ng gobyerno. So wala nang usap-usap, meron lang ganong magiging arrangement na parang dala na lang sila ng pagkain at i-record na lang nila yun. So ganun po yung detalye na, and I would admit yung ngayon po yung detalye na yun ang wino-work out with may mga technical working groups tayo na create on our part lang. Initial preparation din, yung dapat yung secured yung mga lugar. Secured din itong mga lugar na pwedeng maging cause ng mga riot, looting, and all that. So may mga ganong preparations din na hinahanda. So at least, and sabi na natin, continuing itong drill hanggang maging masanay na, ma-memorize na. Eventually, hindi, dapat ito lahat din na malaman na hindi lang ng mga nasa gobyerno, pati sa media, pati sa private, ating mga kababayan. The general public should be aware also of all these moves. So yun po siguro, that will be a communication campaign that will have to be done also moving forward para hindi lang mga government response team ang may alam nitong plano, pati yung public will know how to behave. Thank you.
Continuous naman ang improvement sa ating preparedness. Assess namin ng mga buildings. Continuous din po ang pag-retrofit ng ating mga infrastructures. Of course, hindi naman ito matatapos sa isang taon lang. Pero maasahan nyo po na continuous naman po every quarter, every year, the government will improve in its preparedness. And binanggit po kanina ni Sekanyo, may plano na po ang gobyerno kung magkaroon ng big one, kung sino yung magre-react, kung ano yung saan kukuha ng equipment, kung sino magkakonduct ng road clearing in case na ma-paralyze ang NCR. So the plans are in place, and the improvement in our retrofitting and our assessment is continuous, and we'll continue to strengthen this over the next few years.
Maraming salamat po. Chair Danny Lim.
Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Ang chairman ng MMDA ay siya rin chairman ng Metro Manila Disaster Risk Reduction Council. At as such, patuloy yung ating pakikipag-ugnayan at koordinasyon sa ating mga local government units through their local DMCs para paigtingin yung kahandaan at para ma-improve yung resiliency ng bawat LGU natin. After all, pag may nangyari, sila yung nasa front line. Dapat ano yung pwede ninyong gawin pag may nangyari. So, kadugtong niyan, tayo ay nag-utos, patuloy yung ating utos sa ating mga LGUs through their DMCs, through their city engineers, na tuloy-tuloy na inspekin yung mga gusali, private and public, sa mga areas nila for their structural integrity. Kung hindi kaya ng mga city engineers, ipag-ugnayan sila sa DPWH. At yung shake drills natin, ang contingency plan natin, pag in the case of the big one, ay yung tinatawag natin na Metro Yakal Plus. Ito ay taon-taon ginagawa natin, taon-taon pinag-aaralan, i-reassess for its relevance, for its effectiveness. ano bang pwedeng baguhin dyan para ma-improve. Tuloy-tuloy yung ating pag-aaral ito, sa Oplanyakan Plus na ito. At gusto natin paulit-ulit yung exercises to make sure na yung mga dapat gawin ng ating mga kababayan, in the case of the big one, ay maging second nature na ng ating mga kababayan. At pag may nangyaring sakuna na kagaya ng big one, ang malaking problema natin dito ay yung komunikasyon, communication. Pag nagbagsakan yung mga cell sites natin, puputulin din na natin magagamit yung ating mga cellphones. Kailangan yung redundancy sa communication. In line with that, tayo ay nag-procure ng mga digital communication equipment at pinamigay natin sa lahat ng local government units. Lahat ng LGUs natin ay meron ng COMO equipment at we are 98% prepared na. Kunting refinement na lang sa ating common platform. At yan ay magiging maganda na yung communication ng lahat ng local government units natin with the MMDA. So, patuloy yung ating, sabi ko nga kanina, pakikipag-ugnayan, koordinasyon. Ang gusto nating mangyari talaga ay sa level ng local government units pa lang at sa barangay level pa lang, handa na sila, may magagawa na sila in case may mangyari. So yun po ang mga preparasyon na ginagawa natin.
Okay po, maraming salamat, Secretary.